I want to talk now to our legal analyst and former Nixon Watergate White House counsel John Dean, also our chief political analyst Gloria Borger, also CNN chief legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin, who's just put on his glasses. He's a former federal prosecutor. So is CNN legal analyst Michael Zeldin, who joins us as well. He is, we should note, a former assistant to Robert Mueller. So, Jeff, how significant is this that Rod Rosenstein and Andrew McCabe were so concerned that President Trump's behavior was veering toward obstruction that they opened a case even before a special counsel was appointed?
Well, it just shows how concerned they were about these conversations between the president and Comey, the ones Comey has described so vividly in his testimony in his book, where the president asked for loyalty, where the president asked for Comey to go easy on Mike Flynn. All of that was leading to this concern about obstruction of justice even before Comey was fired. I mean, those conversations were so bizarre. Remember how Comey testified that he typed them up in his car because he was so concerned about memorializing them. He wasn't the only one, is what the message is of this development.
You know, Gloria, the obvious pushback on this is that, you know, someone hearing that folks in the FBI and DOJ were talking about reining in the president. It's not the job of the FBI or the DOJ to rein in the president. They serve at his pleasure, not the other way around. And the president's animus toward McCabe is already well known. I mean, these are career law enforcement officials who, according to, you know, to this reporting, were considering doing this.
Well, you know, they do work for the country and for the American public, even though they are you know, appointed by the president, serve at the pleasure of the president, obviously. But, you know, I think this raises really interesting questions about what happens next with Rosenstein, because you had Rosenstein writing that memo saying that Comey should be fired, and he is a potential witness in this case that he is still overseeing. I mean, we have Matt Whitaker, but I'm not convinced that Rosenstein has withdrawn completely from this. So, and he hasn't. So there's a potential conflict here for Rosenstein. And from Pam and Jeremy's great reporting here, I think we get a sense of how frantic people were. Frantic enough maybe to be joking about wearing a wire, but also frantic enough to say, this is out of control, and we need to investigate the president on obstruction. I mean, it must have been quite a scene inside the Justice Department, and now very difficult, I would think, for Rosenstein to yet again have to explain what was occurring.
Michael Zeldin, I mean, just how can you put this in perspective, how unusual it would be to have this conversation in the Department of Justice and the FBI about opening an investigation into a sitting president?
Well, I guess I see it a little bit differently. You have Comey fired on the 9th of May. Then you have this 7-day period during which the FBI and the Justice Department are trying to make a determination about whether or not what Comey wrote in his memos warrants an independent counsel or some type of inquiry. So they open up a preliminary investigation, but then Rosenstein, upon reflection within this 1-week period, determines that, you know what, as he said in his statement, the public interest demands that a permanent special counsel be appointed. So in some sense, to me, Anderson, it's not so frantic and unexpected that after Comey is fired and these memos are revealed, that they would make a determination about what they should do. They open up a preliminary investigation and then make a determination within the week that really we need a special counsel because there's too much here that implicates the president and politics and the otherwise, and so Mueller gets his job.
John Dean, do you agree with Michael that it's sort of less frantic perhaps than thought?
Well, I adopt almost everything Michael said, and I had the thought about the story when I heard about it. The timing is interesting because we have Comey testifying tomorrow, and these are questions that are just perfect to be asked under oath before the House Judiciary Committee. So the timing of the story is interesting, but it is not surprising to me, given the information Comey took back after his meetings, that the FBI would say, we've got to open an investigation.
Anderson?
Yeah.
Can I make the case for hysteria?
Yeah,
I mean,
please.
I
will
right
too.
ahead.
I
no,
will
I mean,
too.
You know, it's like, oh, well, they were just sort of deciding about whether to
No.
appoint a special counsel. This was crazy what was
Right.
going on in the Justice. This was insane. The President of the United States is asking the FBI director for loyalty. He's shooing people out of the room so he can ask the FBI director to go easy on his national security advisor. This stuff doesn't happen in ordinary administrations. I mean, even Richard Nixon didn't do stuff this crazy,
Right.
and we have John Dean here to prove it.
You know, I'm
I
going
mean,
to agree with
just-
I'm going to agree with my counsel, Jeffrey Toobin, okay? Because this is not normal times. You know, these people are saying, "Wait a minute. We have to open an obstruction of justice investigation into the sitting president of the United States?" I mean, you don't think that causes a little bit of consternation behind closed doors? Of course it does.
Well, Michael Zeldin does it?
Well, I'm not suggesting that the issues to be investigated were not unusual and were at the highest level of, anxiety within the Justice Department. All I'm saying is that in the ordinary course, this is the way the Justice Department and the FBI proceeds.
There is no ordinary course.
Jeffrey,
this is not ordinary.
You're conflating the unusualness of the issue to be investigated with the ordinariness of the process. I think the process was more normal than you do, but we both agree that the circumstances of the investigation were unusual.
How can you separate one from the other?
Yeah.
I mean,
Because
it's a
they're-
process,
Anderson?
yes, but what are they talking about?
Okay, John Dean, I would go.
Yeah, I'd just like to footnote what Michael said and what was raised also about the fact that they were investigating a president. This was not the first time, and actually it was the second time. You'd had an independent counsel during actually there were several independent counsel, and so this was not as unusual a move for the FBI as is normal procedure. Having a president a target is not as unusual today as it once was.